In 2006, two brothers set out on a camping trip deep in the wilderness of British Columbia, an area celebrated for its untouched beauty, ancient forests, and vast silence broken only by wildlife. For them, it was meant to be a retreat, a chance to step away from the pace of daily life and immerse themselves in nature at its purest. They had no reason to believe that this landscape, which had welcomed countless hikers and campers before them, would soon confront them with something they would never be able to explain. The day passed quietly, their camera capturing the scenery in golden evening light as it fell across the dense canopy. Towering trees stretched high overhead, while the forest floor shimmered with a strange glow as the sun began its descent. It was peaceful, almost otherworldly, a perfect moment in a perfect place. But then movement stirred in the distance. At first, they thought it was a bear, an animal familiar to the region and a common enough sight in the wild. They paid it little attention, resuming their activities and brushing off the encounter as ordinary. Yet the figure they had glimpsed was not moving like a bear. Its posture was too deliberate, its shape too large, and its presence felt unnervingly aware of them. Curious but cautious, they trained their camera toward the spot.
Quick, stay back!
Through the undergrowth, the figure revealed itself. Tall, massive, and moving, with slow, deliberate weight. Even at a distance, even in the fading light, it was obvious this was no ordinary animal. The brothers froze, watching as it paused. For a moment, it stood unnaturally still, as though it knew it was being observed, as though it was measuring them in return. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, until the figure finally turned and slipped back into the shadows. Its retreat was as unsettling as its appearance. Unnaturally quiet, leaving behind no sound of movement, no broken branches, nothing but absence. The calm of the forest was broken. Fear replaced wonder, and almost without discussion, the brothers packed their belongings. The place that had seemed so welcoming now felt hostile, charged with the memory of what had just passed before their eyes. The drive home was quiet, weighed down by shock and disbelief. And yet, instead of putting the matter to rest, their unease pulled them back. Later that same evening, they returned to the site. They wanted answers, or at least some explanation that might anchor what they had seen in reality.
Look at that. He ran backwards, right? Over there somewhere. See, that could be a possible footprint. I don't know.
Could be.
Like, look.
What they found instead only deepened the mystery. Impressed into the soft earth near the place where the figure had stood were massive footprints, deep, wide, and far larger than any human foot. The tracks carried a vaguely humanoid shape, with clear toe marks and a heel pressed firmly into the soil. But their scale and depth suggested something of enormous weight, far beyond anything familiar. The brothers documented what they could, their fear mounting as they studied the impressions. Each step they traced seemed to confirm the impossible, that the figure they had seen was not a trick of the light, not a bear on its hind legs, but something far more unusual. Over 6 feet tall, hunched, yet fluid in its movements, and eerily human in the way it had stopped and observed them. The footprints sealed their fear. Whatever it was, it had been real, and it had been watching. In the days that followed, rumors spread quickly. Cryptid enthusiasts pointed out the striking similarities between their account and stories of Sasquatch, its towering height, deliberate gait, and the way it vanished into the forest without a trace. Skeptics dismissed it as misidentification, or perhaps even a hoax, but the remoteness of the site and the authenticity of the prints left the brothers convinced that those explanations didn't hold. For them, the forest was never the same again. What had once been a place of beauty and solace became something darker, a place of secrets where the boundary between the natural and the unknown blurred. The towering trees no longer promised peace. They hid questions that might never be answered. And to this day, their story endures, an unsettling reminder of how little we truly understand about the wild places left in our world. For some, it stands as a tale of imagination, fear, and coincidence. But for the brothers, it remains something else entirely. Proof that the wilderness is vast enough, deep enough, and mysterious enough to hold truths we are not ready to face. The brothers' story lingers as one of the most unsettling accounts to come from the deep Canadian wilderness. But the mystery of strange figures in the trees isn't confined to remote campsites. Sometimes, the camera captures them in places far more ordinary, where no one expects anything unusual. And that video was shared by the YouTube channel Post 10 Vlogs. It begins simply enough. A man walking his bike down a dusty road that cuts through the forests of North America. The trees bare from the season, their branches stretched thin against the pale sky. Nothing about the moment seemed unusual. It was the kind of quiet, ordinary scene that plays out countless times on back roads like this one.
So it could still snow again. That's why the trees aren't going to take their chances coming out yet. Now this one we drove by, it didn't look like it was clogged, but we'll see.
The man talks casually as he films, noting the weather and the way the season lingers. At the time, there was nothing out of place, no reason to suspect anything more than the quiet stretch of road before him. It wasn't until later, when he reviewed the footage at home, that something emerged from the stillness. Hidden among the dry branches, half concealed by the pale light, a massive figure could be seen. It towered over the undergrowth, easily 8 feet tall, its form dark and heavy against the trees. The realization came slowly. What he had walked past so casually might have been something extraordinary. The clip is not perfectly clear, as is often the case with alleged Bigfoot sightings, but for the man behind the camera, the shape was undeniable. He remains convinced that what he captured was more than shadow, more than imagination. He believes he recorded Bigfoot. And that is the unsettling weight of moments like this, when the ordinary act of walking a quiet road leaves you with evidence you cannot explain. If the road taught us anything, it's that what seems ordinary often isn't. It seems that sometimes the evidence doesn't come from what we notice in the moment. It comes later, in the still silence of a trail camera. One frame, frozen in time, showing something no one was meant to see. This next encounter surfaced not through a long investigation or a dramatic night in the woods, but from something far simpler. A trail camera left to quietly monitor the forest. The photo was later shared on the Instagram page Bigfoot Believers, where it quickly stirred debate. When the man who owned the camera returned to check it, he expected the usual: deer, perhaps a fox, or the occasional hiker wandering off trail. But instead, one frame revealed something entirely different. In the background stood a tall, upright figure, its posture unmistakably human-like, but its face anything but. The features were startling, long, heavy, and simian, resembling a monkey or ape. Yet this image had been taken in the United States, a place where no monkeys roam the wild. The contradiction alone was enough to spark controversy. Was it simply a person in a mask, caught in the lens by chance? Or had the camera captured a glimpse of something far less ordinary, a presence that most insist is nothing more than myth? Like so many encounters tied to Bigfoot, the image raised more questions than it answered. A single frame, frozen in time, becomes both evidence and mystery, proof of something unusual, yet never enough to silence doubt. And perhaps that is why it unsettles, because it sits at the edge of possibility, hinting at a truth we are never allowed to see fully. A single image can spark endless debate, but when movement is caught on video, the questions grow sharper, especially when the figure doesn't just appear, but reacts, rising from the brush and vanishing into the trees. A YouTuber named D's Dark Adventures shared a chilling clip submitted by a viewer. According to D, the footage has roots in an older story. Nearly 3 years ago, an elderly man filmed 2 mysterious figures wandering across his neighbor's rural property. That incident never found a clear explanation. Now, in the same remote stretch of land, his grandson claims to have witnessed something similar. The new footage is brief, but unsettling. A dark, humanoid figure crouched low in the brush, as though waiting. Without warning, it rises to its full height and bolts, disappearing into the trees with startling speed. The debate began immediately. Some believe the shadowed figure could be a cryptid, another piece of evidence for legends that refuse to fade. Others dismiss it as a trespasser caught in a strange moment. But one detail lingers. The figure is nothing but a silhouette, completely black from head to toe. And that raises a haunting question. If it was only a person, why would they be dressed this way, hiding motionless in the brush, in the middle of nowhere? Some encounters leave you wondering if what you saw was even human. Others unfold while leaving no doubt about their size, their presence, and their ability to vanish just as quickly. And that brings us to this next clip, shared by the YouTube channel The Paranormal Review. Takes us to Utah's Packin Canyon, a place known more for its quiet trails and towering trees than for anything out of the ordinary. But on this day, a hiker's camera captured something that doesn't belong. As he scanned the forest, a massive dark figure slipped between the trees. Its movement carried a weight and power more reminiscent of a gorilla than anything native to Utah. But gorillas don't roam these woods. Intrigued and unsettled, the hiker carefully followed, trying to get a closer look. When he zoomed in, the figure seemed to notice, its presence undeniable for a fleeting moment, before vanishing back into the forest's depths. For locals, whispers of Bigfoot have long circled these canyons. But for those who watch this footage, the question remains, was this simply a trick of distance and shadow, or one of those rare moments where myth briefly steps into view? One fleeting moment in Utah raises more questions than it answers. But in this next video, the search has never been about a single sighting. His work is built on persistence, returning again and again to the woods, chasing the signs most would overlook. And that was posted by Scott Carpenter. He takes viewers deep into a remote forest on a backpacking trip, continuing his long-running attempt to gather evidence of Bigfoot activity. Scott approaches the journey with his usual mix of curiosity, caution, and determination, framing it as another step in a series of personal investigations that have defined much of his work. His focus remains steady, searching for the subtle but telling signs of the creature's presence, altered stick structures, strange noises, and fleeting movements that defy explanation. The investigation begins with Scott revisiting a stick structure he had previously built in the woods, one he believed served as a kind of territorial marker for Bigfoot. It included a balanced stick, a small pyramid of wood, and several carefully arranged pieces. But when he arrives, it's clear that something has changed. The balance stick is gone from its place, snapped clean in half, and left nearby.
And the balance stick has been pulled out. It's laying on the ground and it's been snapped in two. See where it's been snapped? I don't know where the other half is. There's the lower half.
This discovery unsettles him immediately. To Scott, it feels deliberate, an intentional act rather than the result of time, weather, or chance. He recalls similar findings from past outings, where carefully placed structures were dismantled or altered, as if in direct response to his presence. Examining the broken stick closely, he dismisses natural causes, pointing instead to the possibility of communication, warning signs or boundary markers left by something with purpose. As he moves deeper into the woods, Scott reflects on the potential meaning behind these markers. Could they signify family groups, travel routes, or territorial boundaries? The repeated patterns of manipulation leave him convinced that intelligence lies behind the behavior, not coincidence. But with that thought comes unease. He begins to describe the creeping sensation of being watched, surrounded by a presence that never quite reveals itself.
If I get lucky, I'm going to have a sighting today, get eaten by a bear, attacked by a bear, or end up disappearing. Because they are loud. I'm sure the camera's not picking any of this crap up.
The quiet is broken by faint noises, snapping branches, the subtle rustle of underbrush, sounds too calculated to dismiss. Scott pauses often, scanning the trees, weighing the possibility that these noises might be more than chance. He speculates that the sounds could be a tactic, a way to control his attention, distract him, or heighten his fear. The tension rises further when Scott catches sight of something dark slipping between the trees. It is brief, only a moment, but long enough to leave him shaken. Large, dark, and fast, the figure moves with intention, not the randomness of an animal.
Something darted behind this tree, or darted in this area. Scared the crap out of me. Black, large. Looked like I saw his trailing arm, see, or his butt. Of course, there won't be anything here. No sign, no footprints.
Heart racing, Scott pushes toward higher ground to gain a better vantage point. By the time he arrives, the figure is gone, leaving behind only the weight of the moment, a fleeting glimpse that strengthens his conviction that something intelligent is close, observing him. The investigation sharpens when Scott finds something tangible, a large footprint pressed deep into the soft ground.
Alright, this is possible footfall right there. See that? There we go. See, look, this is just barely, you can just barely tell it. There it is. Okay, there we go. I'm not a total buffoon. There's a footprint right here. I'll have to dissect it for you because you can barely see it, but I'll show it to you. Alright. Right up here are the toes. Right there's the heel mark. That's a big old boy too. Shit.
He crouches to study it, comparing it to his own boot and estimating the track to measure around 16 or 17 inches long. The size is extraordinary, far beyond that of a normal human. Clear toe marks and a deep heel impression make the find even more compelling. For Scott, it is rare evidence, the kind of discovery researchers spend years hoping to uncover. Excitement mixes with urgency as he points out how the depth and definition of the track align with countless eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot encounters. Yet even as he processes this find, Scott considers another unsettling possibility: that the noises and fleeting glimpses he has experienced may serve as diversions. If one creature reveals itself, could it be so? Another remains unseen, moving freely while attention is fixed elsewhere? It is this pattern of partial evidence, shadows glimpsed, noises heard, signs discovered, that underscores both the promise and the frustration of his work. In a dense and overgrown forest, proof is elusive. Disturbances in the leaves, faint impressions in the ground, They all suggest movement, but nothing lasts long enough to become conclusive. Despite the challenges, Scott's determination never falters. Each clue, no matter how small, builds into a larger story. The broken stick, the noises, the brief sighting, the footprint. They add weight to his belief that Bigfoot was close, watching and responding in ways just beyond reach. By the end of his exploration, Scott admits to feeling both exhilarated and frustrated. The evidence is compelling, but never final. Yet that is what keeps him returning. The chance that the next trip might provide not just suggestions, but proof. For now, he leaves with the same balance he began with, an enduring sense of wonder, tempered by the knowledge of just how difficult it is to capture the truth about something that refuses to be found. Scott's determination shows how close the evidence can sometimes feel, yet how elusive it always remains. And while his work unfolds in American forests, across the ocean, another encounter would challenge Europe's wilderness with a mystery of its own. This footage, shared by the YouTube channel AUSWAIS, is not new, but its recent reappearance online has once again left the internet divided and baffled. The mysterious incident reportedly took place in Latvia, a country in northeastern Europe, where a man was casually walking through a remote forest when his path crossed with something entirely unexpected. Emerging from between the trees was a figure covered in thick fur, walking upright on two legs. The encounter was brief but unforgettable. The creature seemed to notice the man filming, hesitated only for a moment, then quickly retreated, bounding away with startling speed before vanishing across a highway. Strangely, the road appeared deserted, no vehicles in sight, suggesting it was either abandoned or located deep within an isolated area. That emptiness only heightened the unease of the moment, leaving the witness with no one else to confirm what he had just seen. Viewers who studied the footage were quick to point out the unnatural way the creature moved. It crouched low, looked directly toward the person filming, then sprinted across the road with a gait unlike any human. Its arms and shoulders swinging heavily, its stride wide and deliberate. For some, it was enough evidence to believe this might indeed have been a Bigfoot. Others speculated the smaller size could suggest a juvenile Sasquatch, or perhaps even an entirely different cryptid species native to Latvia's dense wilderness. Whatever the case, the brief encounter remains as unsettling as it is mysterious. A reminder that not all forests in Europe are as quiet as they seem. That brief sighting in Latvia was enough to unsettle even the most skeptical. But sometimes, the mystery doesn't wait in remote woods or abandoned highways. Sometimes, it steps directly onto private land, leaving homeowners to wonder what's lurking just beyond the tree line. This next encounter comes from the YouTube channel Project Darkwood, a page dedicated to the strange and the cryptid. In this case, a homeowner had grown uneasy after hearing loud noises outside and finding unusual footprints scattered across their property. Concerned, they reached out for help, hoping someone could make sense of what was happening.
Now in the southwestern corner of the property. Allegedly, this is where the guy said he had the most activity. That remains to be seen. A little spooky, I guess. It's mostly just quiet. Apparently they're building a subdivision over that way. Huh. Oh. What the hell was that? Ooh. Something walking. Oh, shh. Okay, all right. Okay.
That's when it appeared. A massive figure moving through the trees. Tall and broad, its frame was draped in dark fur, and its eyes burned with a faint, unnatural red glow as they caught the light. For a moment, it seemed to stop, as if acknowledging it had been seen, before slipping back into the cover of the forest. The footage spread quickly, leaving audiences divided. Was this encounter staged for attention? Another story built for the internet? Or had something truly unexplainable wandered too close to the edge of human habitation? Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.